So I look like crap, I feel like crap, but there's big Diablo 2 Resurrected news, so let's get right into it. Checking the post today from the official Diablo Twitter, you'll see that the improvements that Adam Fletcher had referred to pretty recently in a couple different spots are actually coming to light. So patch 2.4.3 will officially be going live on June 29th. As of today's video, that's 2 days from now, or Wednesday if you're in the same time zone as I am. So all in all, you have a manually refreshable 40 game list that should look at all games in your region. So if it turns out that the server that you were dropped to inside of your region just didn't have a lot of active players, you're no longer getting screwed out of and are able to find more games that probably fit whatever criteria you're looking for, whether it's trading, getting into cow games, bail runs, etc., etc. And luckily for console players, they've listened to and received all of that feedback that we've been screaming about, and they're bringing a lot of the same functionality that you have on PC into consoles. So now you're able to make different games according to how you would like to, just like you can on PC, either jumping into a private game, creating a free to enter game amongst other people, or just jumping right into a games list lobby like you already can do on PC. There's now a game creator menu option when you're making the game on console that allows you to continue to use all of those more niche filter criteria for your particular game, looking to be in a particular act or quest. But in addition to that, you're now able to select everything that you normally would on PC from this same screen. So when you actually post it to the list in the game lobby, people are going to be able to search the way that they normally would, but you're going to see a much more natural or legacy version of finding games on console, which was previously missing. When searching for a game on console, you're going to be able to fine-tune your search even further. So you are able to obviously look at difficulty, which is something that they added in on D2R launch on PC. You're also able to check by ping to the server that that game is on. You're also able to go through and try to filter down by game name. Doing any one of these different filter criteria will go ahead and refresh your list of games according to the newest setting that you put in. So it's not that you have to put in this criteria and then go fish for a search button and then pop back up into it. Looks like it's going to be a lot smoother than that, and it's going to be updating in real time when you make these search criteria changes. And in even bigger news, only because the population is larger, for PC game lobby searching, we are also now able to put in search criteria for game names. Now, this will go a long way of being able to filter down to bail runs, chaos runs, cow runs, or looking for generalized trading nomenclature like putting in O for offer and for need, or perhaps putting in the shorthand version of an item to see if anybody is looking to specifically trade that item in a game lobby name. What I think is arguably the coolest part about this news post is that they're going to be running a magic find weekend. So over the dates of June 30th to July 4th, you're going to have a flat 50% magic find bonus across your character. So that means even if you have no gear on, when you're walking out as a level 1 character, you're statted as if you have 50 magic find, which is going to drastically increase the drop rates of magic, rares, uniques, and sets. A couple important things to notice about this, just because I did see some kind of interesting questions flitting across social media when this post went live. Magic Find does not affect rune drop rates. It does not affect key drop rates. It doesn't change whether or not a charm or a jewel will drop. It only changes what quality the charm or jewel would be when it does drop. So Magic Find is going to increase the magic quality or higher of items if they were to drop and can be magic quality. So a sword that would either be white or just a base ethereal weapon may be a magic, rare, set, or unique at a higher rate. One of the kind of interesting issues with this does mean that farming for bases is going to be harder to do so, because they're going to, on average, drop as magic quality or higher more often than they normally would. So if you're still in the market trying to farm for bases, the way to offset this would be to remove as much magic find as possible from your character's normal kit. But if you want to try to wrap your head around just how powerful 50 magic find is, think about this. It's roughly like having 7 magic find charms, or having a stronger Geed's charm for free. So what that basically means is that you could effectively gain upwards of +2 skills, considering 7 magic find charms, would take up 7 slots, and you would be able to normally fit 2 skillers into that same slot. So if you're looking at your character and going, oh, I already have 400 magic find, this really isn't going to make that big of a difference, you're correct. But consider the fact that at least for these days, you could slot on average, about 2 more plus skills if you were someone who was trying to max out magic find in the past. The other cool part about this, though, is that if you're in multiplayer games where perhaps there's one really strong character with a lot of magic find, but there are other people in it as well who are also getting kills, generally bringing down the quality of items since they probably don't have a lot of magic find. If you're in gameplay, every monster you kill is going to check at least 50% magic find. You're going to see an overall increase in magic items and better, whereas before, some of the other characters being in the game were kind of bringing down the quality of item drops if they managed to get a kill instead of that one super high level or really high magic find super carry that was in the game before. So while not everything in this list is technically an increase or quality of life because they have actually resolved some bugs, I kind of just want to go bullet point by bullet point to very quickly tag on what they've fixed. Like specific animation effects like leap attack, and whirlwind are now more responsive. You're able to start a new one sooner after the last one has completed. So that should make leap attack and whirlwind builds feel a bit less janky, especially for people who haven't mastered maneuvering and using the skills in tandem. Whirlwind is now going to be looking at total increased attack speed or effective increased attack speed from all of your gear to determine the hit check. The hit check window is now going to be measured against doing a base attack with that weapon, checking increased attack speed, as opposed to having a specific whirlwind calculation that then determine the intervals between hit checks. If you are dual wielding weapons, it's going to be looking at the average attack speed for your hit check frame between the 2 weapons. So this does mean you're able to slightly speed up slower weapons, but slower weapons are going to slightly slow down faster weapons in the main hand. And the average of this is going to round up as opposed to round down. So you're going to get the harshest attack frame between the average as opposed to the nicest attack frame between the average. And basically what it boils down to is that whirlwind should be similar to how it was working before, but a lot more easy to understand where the attack frames are coming from. But slower weapons are going to much more noticeably slow down the hit check interval on your whirlwind attack. For controllers, there's now a loot to your cube skill that you can actually put onto your bar. So if you're looking to pick up an item, it'll attempt to automatically put it into your cube as long as you have enough space in the cube. This is just a functionality that didn't exist on controller, which basically meant carrying the cube while still allowing you to have more space in your inventory necessitated that you have free space open in your inventory in the first place to be able to put the item into it, to then be able to move it to the cube. So they've completely bypassed that need. You also are now going to have a hotkey for just directly opening your Herodric cube if it's in your inventory, which is such a super cool concept. This is something that goes a long way to be able to either very quickly take things out of the cube if that was a problem that you were running into, or just adding more versatile inventory management options. Whereas before you had to open inventory, open cube, then manipulate items into or out of however you wanted to do it. And while there's a couple other things here in the first part, I think the most important thing here is that they're going to add a "are you sure" check when you shift click all of your stat points into a single attribute. So this is something where you might have been respecking your character, trying to control click a certain number of points into something, forget what you were doing, and then just dump stats into dex, dump stats into energy, and well, it looks like you need to get another token of absolution if you've used all of your respec quests. For online gameplay, you're now able to double click games to join into them as opposed to having to click them and then click enter or join game manually. Really nice. You're also able to just more quickly get into games in case you're trying to snipe some kind of trade game, etc., etc. And then people who are actively playing Diablo 2 Resurrected are now going to float to the top of your friends list, which was at least a huge problem for us during the 99 push because we had to have so many people in our friends list because we were swapping out so many community members for different teams all the time that you had to manually search for your characters until you were in a recently played game. Now, if you have your friends, they'll float to the top of the list, which is so much nicer because as much as I love a lot of my friends, when they were playing Overwatch, I really didn't need to see them in my friends list in D2R. And the most important change, Deckard Cain can see inside of your Herodric cube now. Oh, just some party poppers, streamers, just so good. Decker King couldn't identify items if they were in your cube. Now he can. Now you don't need to constantly swap out charms, to swap out items, to have him identify them, etc. This is just such an awesome change. I'm really glad that they finally got around to fixing whatever the cause of this was. A very interesting bug that actually Warren from the community had made me aware of, which was short distance whirlwinds were actually ending so quickly that they were not hitting the first hit check. Whirlwind now will end after executing at least a single attack if you were to do a shortest distance whirlwind. For most people, this is what you probably thought was happening when you were missing or not making attacks for some reason. It was because the whirlwind window was actually shorter than the amount of time to do the first hit. So you were ending the animation before you actually did an attack. And then once the animation is done, it doesn't attempt to do the attack. So this is a huge change to Whirlwind, which goes a long way to make the new functionality of Whirlwind work a lot better, again, especially for people who are newer to the mechanics. That being said, the very next bullet line, they've taken out the broken weapon offhand bug. So this is something that was new in D2R, and for all intents and purposes, putting a broken weapon into your offhand made it so that you, whenever you did a whirlwind, you attacked with 2 of your main hand. Now you're actually going to have weapons in both of your hands if you intend to benefit from having weapons in both of your hands. So RIP to the people who were abusing this bug previously, but honestly, it wasn't healthy for the game in general, because while it's very cool, and I actually like very cool bugs in games, this was so unintuitive and was doubling the effective wealth of characters inorganically, because you only need to make 1 of any weapon. Now, that being said, this also means that getting into Whirlwind is going to be harder for people with less gear, but I would recommend checking out either 2-handed options for Whirlwind or looking at some of the cheaper, especially rune-word weapons that you can more easily make, just to put good stats onto a fast base before you're able to afford something like your double grief or a grief and a beast or whatever you end up trying to use on your Whirlwind build. And then the cheeseburger of good, bad, good, Whirlwind is now going to make a hit check with both of your hands on the first hit check. So for people who don't know, Whirlwind basically went on the first hit check, only swing with your main weapon. And then on your second hit check, alternate your hands on different targets if available. Now the first attack will do alternating attacks on both hands if multiple targets are available, which is super good. It basically just means that your DPS is starting at its maximum potential, even on the first hit, as opposed to having to wait for the second hit, which sometimes you didn't get to, especially if you're doing short whirlwinds. And something that I think some people didn't really know was happening or couldn't really figure out what the problem was, it was almost impossible to target a corpse like you normally would using something like Corpse Explosion or Find Item or Grim Ward, now that that skill is actually usable. If there were targets over the corpse, the skill would see the target rather than the corpse underneath it as a priority. It looks like they have fixed the ability to now be able to auto-target when using right-click for these skills. Now they say corpse skills, so again, I think it refers to everything: Find Item, Find Potion, Grim Ward, as well as Corpse Explosion. This goes a really long way to help make that gameplay feel a lot smoother, because what you basically had to do was move your cursor over to where there is nothing, hold right-click and drag it back into the middle, so that you weren't able to accidentally target anything that wasn't a corpse, which made it very difficult in tight spaces, especially while teleporting around, to be able to do this seamlessly or fast enough, and sometimes actually endangering the character. Because if you're not corpse exploding, those monsters are still alive and they're swinging at you. Other than that, they've just fixed a lot of smaller issues. Probably the most notable one is that there was an issue where both hardcore players had to mutually tag each other to be able to loot a corpse in case they died. But now it looks like as long as you tag somebody to be able to loot your corpse, if you die, you're fine. They don't need to re-tag you back, which is nice, especially in split second if you knew you're going to die and needed to tag somebody just so that you had a chance to get your gear back. I'm glad to see that they're paying attention to some of the issues that are specific to hardcore, because hardcore players already have it rough enough, considering at any moment they could lose all their crap to a weird GG bug, like what happened to our boy Dark Humility at the beginning of the ladder season. And that's it. So something that was just supposed to be some quality of life changes, Adam really hid just how much awesome, massive stuff is going on here, especially with that Magic Find event. Now think about the fact that if they're able to do something like this, Maybe they did a global event that was key drop rates are at a higher chance now, even if you don't have higher player count, or Ubers are dropping higher quality torches on average, or Annies from Declone are dropping at a higher average. Just think about what other things they might be able to do if they're willing to host a Magic Find event. I liken this a lot to some of the games that are really successful at doing this. Something like Pokemon Go has all these really awesome like shiny hunting events, or just pokes that you're looking for spawning at higher rates. They also had legendary spawning more often. There's just a lot of cool things that you can do that benefit everybody in the community equally. So it's not like there's some kind of weird power game system. It's just cool and it gives you a reason to come back and play, which might reinvigorate your love for the game and help to pass the time between seasons if you're more of just a seasonal game player before you go back to single player. Let me know what you think of all of these changes. I think they are top-notch awesome. Again, thank you so much to the continued work of the Diablo 2 Resurrected team, as well as the community managers, getting this information out to us, making it crystal clear, and working on the issues that we bring up as a community, because as long as we're able to do that in a constructive and valuable way, we'll continue to see the game that we love get better and better. And I think that's to the benefit of everybody. But thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.